Welcome to Cooking with the Pineapples.
Cooking with the French masters.
Oops, wrong show. Cooking with the French masters.
Today we're going to make a French apple tart.
Ooh, that sounds good. We will show you step-by-step instructions, but first you should know the history of the French apple tart.
Our story begins in the late 1800s in a small town in the Loire Valley with two sisters, unmarried, who ran a small hotel. At the desk, the youngest, Caroline Titian.
The older sister, Stephanie Tayton, took care of the cooking, and she could be found at any time of the day working the stove. Her specialty was the tart among pommes, that traditional French apple pie, which she served as a crunchy caramelized with melted sugar and butter.
One day, when she was preparing lunch in a bit of a hurry, by mistake, Stephanie put the apples and sugars in the pan without putting the crust in first. In a rush, she threw the crust on top, baked it a bit too long, and turned out on a plate upside down, not bothering to let it cool as she usually did. Voila, the delicious tarte tatin was born.
But the injuries begins. Maximum's, the famous Paris restaurant, got wind of the popularity of the tart and engaged a chef to pose as the gardener and steal the recipe. It has been on their menu ever since. Now that you know the history, let's start baking. For the pastry, you will need the following:
2 cups of flour, half teaspoon of kosher salt, 1 tablespoon of sugar, 2 tablespoons cold unsalted butter, 1/2 cup ice water. For the pastry, place the flour and salt and sugar into a bowl of a food processor. Fill with a steel blade and then pulse for a few seconds to combine the ingredients, and then add the butter and then pulse to 10 to 12 times till the butter is in small bits about the size of peas. With the motor running, pour the ice water down the feed tube and pulse just until the dough comes together, and then knead it on a floured board. Wrap in plastic wrap and let sit in the fridge for at least 1 hour. Roll the dough slightly larger than 10 by 14 inches using a small knife. Turn in a ruler. Trim the edges and place the dough on the prepared baking pan and refrigerate for a while when you prepare the apples.
Okay, now let's do that.
Get this bowl off the food processor. Start adding your ingredients. You should start by putting the flour and salt and sugar in the bowl of the food processor. Here's the salt. Okay, adding the sugar. You should pulse for a few seconds to combine.
We're going to pulse a few times to combine the ingredients.
Then you should add the butter and pulse 10 to 12 times until the butter is in small bits. The butter should be cold, and you should cut about 1.5 sticks of butter. So we need that half. Okay, so there's the butter, and we also need that whole stick. To 12 times. Until the bits of the flour and butter are the size of peas. There's still like a whole stick in there. While the food processor is running, you should add the water very slowly. Not very slowly, but pretty slow. And it'll just all mix. You should just pulse the dough until the dough starts to come. Now you take the dough, ow, that's sharp, place it on the board thing, whatever you want to call it, and just knead it together. Hey.
Okay, you can stop it.
Once kneaded, put it in a plastic wrap and refrigerate it for at least 1 hour. So you should preheat your oven to 400.
For the apples, you will need 4 Granny Smith apples and a half cup of sugar. Okay. For the apples, you'll start by peeling the apples and cut them in half. Okay.
So you need to cut the apples into thin slices, just like this. Be careful of your fingertips.
Don't want to cut off those fingers.
Yeah, buddy.
Now that the tart is completely covered in apples, sprinkle a half a cup of sugar on top.
It might look like a lot of sugar, but during the baking, it will all sink through and be a tasty treat.
It's supposed to be melted because you're putting it in
Yeah,
the oven anyway.
so you need to have melted butter, and you just glaze it on top of your apples. You can use one of these things used for oil if you have one. It's not necessary, but you can use one. Your tart, place it in the oven and put it in there for 45 minutes. And then you just wait. Here it is before we add the textured jelly. You have to add a half a cup of jelly in your pot and heat it up.
I did it! Oh my god. I did it without failing.
Here you have to add the water once it's getting heated. That's 1 tablespoon. There's 2 tablespoons.
And now we mix it.
Big spoon. You should mix it until it's glaze-like.
And let it sit. Now that it's glazed like, we can remove it from the heat. And then we pour it through the sieve to get all the chunks out. And push it down. This on with the same thing that we spread the butter on.
You just glaze.
Glaze it on.
There. You should take it off with a metal spatula.
Pretty.
Here's the final result. We are gonna try it. Yay. This is really good and it was really fun to make. I hope you learned a lot about the French apple tart. Thanks for watching. French apple tart.
Our story begins in the late 1800s in a small town in the Lorry Valley with 2 sisters, unmarried. Can we start over?
Yeah.
Can I get on that?
Thanks
Thanks for watching. This was really fun to make.
Now I'm gonna peel the apples.
Get this off.
Mom, how do you get the thing off the food processor? Because I need to put the ingredients in there.
Completely covered in sugar. Sprinkles.
Time to get the apples.